How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Emerald City Hockey Postgame Live. How about that awesome Seattle Kraken comeback here at home? Take the game in overtime, barely in overtime, as Brendan Montour gets the game-winning OT GWG 5 seconds into the overtime period. Man was just on a mission. Did not want to have to stay any later than we already are having to after the 7:30 start, I guess. But it was a fantastic comeback there for the Seattle Kraken in this one, battling back. They had the 2-goal lead early. They lose that, go down 4-2, be able to come back into it, including an NHL first goal for Yanni Newman in his first ever NHL game. That was fantastic to see and be in the building for. There's a lot of good things to talk about from this one. And I know there's going to be other stuff to talk about, Shane and all that kind of stuff, but there's definitely going to be a lot of good stuff to talk about this one. But before we can talk about any of it, I want to thank our wonderful sponsor, Queen Anne Beer Hall, for sponsoring the postgame show as always. And we are officially only 1 week away from our watch party there at Queen Anne Beer Hall next Wednesday at 6:30 for that Kraken game at Minnesota Wild. And Queen Anne Beer Hall has been very generous, and they're going to be donating a pair of Seattle Kraken tickets to a game later on this season, a home game later on this season, and we'll be raffling those off during the second intermission. So definitely come by, raffle ticket, and see if you can get over to a Kraken game, as well as just watch the game with all of us in the ECH community. It should just be a really fun time, especially if the Kraken are going to play like they played today, right? This was just such a fantastic game with the comeback and everything, and there's a lot of stuff to get into in here for sure. Well, let's start with Light kicking us off with the super chat. Fastest overtime goal in NHL history, baby. Is it really? 5 seconds is fast, and to be honest, I feel like 5 seconds is longer than it actually took. It felt like that was over in like 3, maybe 4. But Brandon Montour, it was a good feed from Chandler Stevenson off of the draw there, just kind of shoveling it forward. Brandon Montour does a great job of beating his man and then just being able to go in and then, of course, finishing on the breakaway, right? That's arguably the hardest part of it all, but gets that breakaway and is able to put it in the back of the net. Just an incredible sequence there from the Seattle Kraken. Like I said, it just felt like they did not want to have to be in this building any longer, and they went out there and made it happen and got us all out of here. But that was crazy. But fastest OT goal in NHL history, eh? That's really interesting. What an incredible feat. Or did it tie? I have to assume it probably tied. That is awesome. That is definitely something. Love to see that though. And then the Comic Binge, how's it going? Thank you for the super chat. But 2 power play goals in this economy. I know. They worked a lot on the power play yesterday before practice, and I could tell right away, just watching Yanni Newman on the power play, that he was the future of the Kraken power play. His one-timer is the best one-timer that we've ever seen in a Seattle Kraken sweater. We can officially say that now. He has played in an NHL game, right? And that one-timer opportunity he had, it wasn't a goal, but when he goes short side and it hits off the post, it looked like it maybe ramped up the goalie's arm or glove a tiny bit and then off the post. But that shot, we have not seen anybody on a power play be able to take a one-time shot like that before. And so to see that was just fantastic to see. Really appreciated seeing that. And then obviously later on being able to get the power play goal for his first NHL goal was obviously very special as well. You can just, like I said, he is the future of the Seattle Kraken power play. That's the guy. That's the guy. You can tell that he's going to be it. And not only is it the one-timer that's so deadly, or then, later on with that one where he buries that beautiful feed from Jordan Eberle, who was down below the goal line, out to Yanni Newman for the goal there. Yesterday during practices, he was taking the one-time shots, and you just instantly knew that he was fantastic at it. But also in that power play situation, he would line up for the one-timer, and then instead of throwing it on net, he would do like a one-timer slap pass. So he'd swing his stick down like it's that one-timer kind of slap shot motion, but then he would pass the puck through the crease to somebody waiting on the other end. It was Jordan Eberle, actually yesterday in practice, and he would kind of pass it to Jordan Eberle there, back door, kind of in the crease, ready and waiting. And what was so impressive about it was he did it a couple times, and the defense kind of knew it was coming, and they just couldn't stop it because he's able to put so much onto his shot, and he carried that over into those slap passes. It was just really, really incredible to watch. And so I was just thinking to myself, like, gosh, if defenses and a goaltender are going to have to worry about Yanni Newman on the power play, not just with his deadly one-timer, which is going to be one of the top one-time shots in the National Hockey League, but they also have to worry about him making strong, accurate, quick passes backdoor to somebody while in that spot on the power play. Those are the things that keep penalty killing coaches up at night for good reason. And so I can't wait to see more Yanni Newman, and I'm sure we're going to talk much more about him moving on and later in this one. But want to get to the next super chat. This one from Edward. Appreciated, Edward. If I had a nickel for every time a Kraken 22 draft pick got their first NHL goal in a home game against Montreal, I'd have 10 cents, which is not a lot, but it's cool that it happened twice. It is. And what a coincidence there for both Shane Wright and Yanni Newman. Well, I guess we'll see what Jagger Firkus, he would be the next one to get it, and Rykov, and who knows, Nick Ikoko, right? Like, we'll just lump them all in there together. See what we can do there. Yeah, no, that is fantastic. That is a really cool thing to see for sure. Oh man, that is really fun. I like that, Edward. Thanks for the super chat, Chuck, with the super chat. Wahoo, what a debut! It was a fantastic debut for Yanni Newman. I mean, even before the goal was scored, I talked about the opportunity he had with the one-timer on the power play earlier. But just the way that he was out there, the way he was skating, the way he was competing, the way he was trying to go to the net front, right? Like, he would be part of the cycle. And then if the cycle wasn't going, or it wasn't going to be in his area out there on the ice, he would immediately go to the net front and try to post up there. I think he has the size to get there. He doesn't have the strength yet to stay there when it comes to being in that net front role. But you know what? The bottom line is he was getting there. He was getting those opportunities. As long as he kind of times it with when a shot might come, he's still going to be effective in that spot. And he's still forcing defensive coverage to really have to account for him and then physically push him out of the way. And he'll get stronger as his skating improves, as well as just physically as he improves and gets older and all of that kind of stuff, and starts adding on the weight and everything. So that stuff will come for him in due time. It's just, yeah, that is really, really cool. It was really cool to see that from him throughout some big hits in this one as well. And then just generally, I think the big thing that I was certainly looking forward to was seeing how well his improved skating translated to an NHL game. And maybe there was a time or two where it looked a little awkward and he was kind of Bambiing out there, or maybe it kept him from being able to totally join a rush. But for the most part, he was able to play with speed, he was able to play with pace, and he was able to be a part of all the plays that were happening while he was out there on the ice. And so that tells me he's kind of good to go. Moving forward. Again, he needs to get stronger, especially because he's a big guy. If he's not going to get low, he's not going to get a lot of leverage, but that stuff will come. And really, it's just important that that shot is going to show up at the NHL level and be as dangerous as it obviously already is. And it is very dangerous, let me tell you. Kendall with the super chat, appreciate it. Wow, this game was stunning. The future is bright for this team. Yanni's mom absolutely destroyed me. His parents were so cute. Seeing him on the power play was so fun. It was, right? Like, it was so cool. And I guess that was the one thing that I was missing being here in person, was that I wasn't getting those updates from the broadcast as much. So thanks to everybody who was posting them on social media feeds and things like that, because was not able to really check in on those while here in the building. Unfortunately, they should have just given us a live cam that followed his parents, just like in the corner of the Twins. Whenever he was out there on the ice, I would have really appreciated that. But still, they were adorable, extremely emotional when he scored, as one would imagine. And it was really, really cool to see that. I know he was excited yesterday that they were coming and that they were on their way here. It's just fantastic for them to be able to be here and see him not only make his NHL debut, but then to also go out there, play as well as he did, get a goal the way that he did. Just truly unforgettable moment for that family. And I'm just super happy that they were able to have that, and they'll be able to go and celebrate that all together tonight. So it's really great. And then Amanda here with the super chat, forget lose fun, we get the win fun. Yeah, we do. We do get occasionally get the win fun. This was a really fun game. The comeback was really fun to watch. Things were obviously pretty dicey there during the second period. But this was really just one of those games where the ice was heavily slanted, right? At least until the overtime there. But second period, things were a little rough. Maybe it wasn't the most fun then, but way to battle through for the Kraken, way to come back, way to stay in it, and also to get the early the early goals that meant that the comeback late didn't have to be as dramatic as we've maybe seen in the past. I think that helped a little bit as well. But it was definitely a fun game for sure. Going over into chat, appreciate all those super chats. Actually, one more super chat here. Sean, if the 04 showing on the NHL app stands, Monty is in a 4-way tie for fastest from the beginning of any period. I was going to say, I couldn't remember if there had been an NHL goal scored 3 seconds into a period or not. I don't know why I had 3 seconds in. I mean, things have to happen if that's going in. But 4 seconds does feel like, for a play to fully develop like that, not just like a wonky shot that somehow bounces past a goalie from like the blue line. It does feel like 4 seconds is kind of like the fastest physically that everybody could move and go in and score the way that happened. And yeah, I'm seeing that too on the NHL app, the 4 seconds. So we'll see what ends up kind of standing and what ends up going. The feel for me is that 4 seconds is the appropriate time there. That is the actual time. That's what it felt like it was being in the building. 5 seconds, that seems a little long to me. But thanks for putting in that super chat there, Sean. Appreciate it. Coming over into the regular comments here. See James, yeah, they won, but I'm done watching until they start using Shane correctly. I'm officially protesting the rest of the season. His usage is just criminal. But yay, Yachty, so happy his parents could be here. So I knew this was the other big thing. I do want to address this kind of earlier on, and then we can get back to celebrating the win. But I just know that Shane being on the fourth line was a big deal, and it's a big aspect of this game for everybody. And so I do think that this needs to be talked about kind of and addressed earlier on, and then we can get maybe RJ's opinion later and maybe a comment from Dan, Coach Dan Bylsma, about it as well. Look, I think it makes sense in the context of Yanni Newman was going to get thrown into the lineup and be given, substantial playing time. He was not going to come in on the fourth line. Dan told us that yesterday. So, we kind of got a glimpse of these lines. We weren't sure that it was for real, though, yesterday at practice when we saw these lines and this setup. So that's why we didn't say anything about what the lines were beyond the power play units. We kind of figured those would stay together. My thinking on it is, look, Yanni Newman needed to get minutes. He's probably only up here either for this game or more realistically just for the homestand. And you want him to be given a fair shot to see what he has, where he's at as far as his NHL development, and you need to give him a certain number of minutes in order to accurately assess where he is at against NHL competition. Third line role makes a lot of sense for that. That's what most teams do with their young players. The issue arises in you don't want to necessarily load up a line with two young players. Like, you don't want to necessarily have Shane centering Yanni Newman because it's a lot of young players, right? Shane, you could argue, is basically a rookie, and so you don't necessarily want to put him in that spot where he then has a rookie on his wing and vice versa, where you want Yanni to have a more experienced centerman than Shane Wright. So now Shane can't be on the third line if Yanni's going to be on the third line. Well, you want Matty and his line to get their minutes. Matty's development is also important. We tend not to think about it just because he's been around kind of longer, but Matty is very much still developing and still very much trying to come into his own as a player. Obviously, he had a great game tonight, picked up a goal, and did he get an assist earlier? No, just the one, the game tying goal there late. But Matty needs ice time to develop, and he needs certain situations to continue developing. And obviously he's been a more impactful player through the season in its totality, and being able to play the possession game that he plays and everything. So he's got to get his minutes. So as a center, you can't stick Shane on the first line. And then you do still need, while you have guys like Matty Beniers and Chandler Stevenson in the lineup, you need a veteran center who's going to take on the bad matchups. You don't want to run your young centerman into a buzzsaw, and that's where Chandler Stevenson comes in. It's the same thing that Alex Wenberg was doing for Matty, right? In seasons prior to this one. It's what Chandler Stevenson is doing now, and especially tonight. And so that kind of left the fourth line as the only place to stick Shane. I do not think it's a long-term thing. Like I said, I think it's for as long as Yanni Newman is up here. Yanni Newman should just be up here for the homestand, unless he really plays well, in which case, he might stay up longer. And then I think we would see Shane maybe move up to his line or something else change there. But that was kind of my read on it, was you can't just load up the lineup with just the young players. Those young players need veterans around them to either take on the hard matchups when they're not on the ice, or, you need somebody like a Jared McCann, who's an experienced center who can take care of things defensively, so Yanni Newman can just focus on getting up the ice and getting focused on the offensive zone, right? You want a center who's going to be able to do that for him and just focus on that. You want somebody like Shane Wright. Yes, he's just on the fourth line, but he's getting then premium matchups. He can focus on being offensive instead of having to worry about just being defensive, centering a Yanni Newman. So I know it was upsetting for a lot of people to see Shane Wright in that spot. I get it. I know, we've obviously talked about the ice time thing a lot this year. If you know my opinions on it, I think it's a little overblown to just look at the ice time number and not look at the context around it all. And I think the context around all of this was, they wanted Yanni Newman to get ice time tonight, and just by nature of everything, the way it has to then break down, Shane had to go to the fourth line. And I think that that's normal and that's fair. And that's what a lineup that's going to have a lot of young players in it is going to look like. So somebody has to draw the short straw, because you're not going to load up full lines of young players. And tonight it was Shane. And we'll see if that continues through the homestand, or if it ends after the homestand, or whatever the case may be. But that was my read on the situation. And I think it's kind of normal. Like it seems, in that sense, reasonable to me. I understand the logic there. So that's my take on it. We can, like I said, later get RJ's and everything, but I just wanted to get that out there. Sorry if I went on it too long. Bryce, that has to be the best Kraken debut ever, right? It's certainly up there. I think Matty Beniers had a pretty good one back in his day, all those many years ago. But I thought Matty Beniers had a great debut, and really just the rest of that season, the 10 games that he played, was fantastic. But I remember, if I'm remembering right, Matty got the apple in Calgary in his first game, and then followed it up getting his first goal, that first home game back against New Jersey. So that was a pretty good debut. But yeah, no, I mean, this is definitely up there for a player who was drafted and developed by the Kraken. Bryce, I think you're honest up there. I do think this was probably the best one. I mean, he was fantastic. And Sean saying first star Yanni, it was really funny. I love that they did that, and they gave him that moment, and the crowd was able to cheer for him and all of that. And by the way, probably best first toss, best first fish eat from Yanni Newman. He got it deep into the stands, and we know from previous players, whether they be free agents coming in, trade acquisitions coming in, or drafted players coming in, that it's a little awkward the first time you do it, right? It takes everybody a little while to maybe get the hang of the fish eat. Yanni Newman looked like he had been doing it for years there with his first fish eat. But it was really funny because I'm happy he gets the first start, but I said, Brandon Montour get 2 goals, 4 points, the OT GWG. I turned to RJ and I said, Brandon Montour first star, I bet, and I said, I'll give you the field. I'll give you good odds on the field. And RJ was having none of it, and he should have taken that bet. B, what a game to be at in person. Brandon Montour, my goodness. Yes. We talked about Yanni Newman. Brandon Montour really stepped up in this game. Just even from the first goal that he scores, right? Just the awareness there to see that gap that the Montreal Canadiens left available, goes ahead, skates up into it. Great read from Jordan Eberle to see him out of the corner of his eyes. They had a fantastic camera shot from down in the corner. Ebbs is looking kind of cross the zone, and he sees Montour out of the corner of his eye, makes a great no-look pass right onto the tape of Brandon Montour, who's then able to bury that shot. But it was a fantastic read from Montour to see that gap, step up into it, and then get the shot off quick, because there was defenders on either side of him, so he had to get that shot off quick. But I love that play and kind of how that develops. If you're going to ask for my favorite goal, Striatic, I'm sure you've already asked in the comment section. There's mine. Yeah, there was that one, and then like I said, just ending the game in overtime the way he did, battling through to get the inside position on his man from the beginning, from the face-off, getting up ice, and then having the ability to, settle down enough to then snipe the corner the way he did is obviously insanely impressive. And then also all the apples. I mean, he was just so heavily involved in this one, and I think that that's fantastic to see. Oh, I love it. Kraken Queen, I'll be living on that overtime goal for a long time. What a game to see live. It really was. Really was. I mean, great game to see kind of regardless of if you were here in person or not, but it was fantastic. David, what an awesome first game for Newman. I can't imagine what kind of high he is on right now. I can't either. That is so fantastic. So happy for him. So happy for him. Really love that. Sean, I'd been planning a whole different chat idea tonight, but I'm going to let it go. Way to go, Yanni. Love the leadership from Monty and Ebbs tonight. That ended up being very fun. It really was. And yeah, credit to Montour and Eberle for stepping up their game in this one. A lot of young players in the lineup tonight. Definitely good stuff. Doberman, I only got to watch the last 10 minutes in overtime. Looked like a great win. You picked the right 10 minutes to tune in for, let me tell you. Definitely good call there. Downstream, bring on the youth. We're on to that. I mean, that is what we're doing. I got to imagine Yanni's gonna be in the lineup again on Friday against Utah. That would be my guess. RJ and I both thinking that it'd be up for the homestand, like I've said earlier. So we'll see. That was really great. And then Striatic with the Yanni, for Yanni Gord spelling, era ends. Yanni era begins with the Yanni Newman spelling. Definitely from one Yanni era right into another. The Seattle Kraken franchise, they're always solid. They've always got a Yanni out there. He's gonna be a crowd favorite and get things going for us. Love it. Love seeing all of that kind of stuff in here. Amanda, what a vibe. Virginia, little Yanni's first goal. I do like the people also like little Yanni. He seems pretty big. He's the biggest forward, right? When he's on this lineup, he is a big man. He said so yesterday when talking to us in his media availability. He repeated a couple times, big man. He's big man, and that he is. And we saw him use that size a little bit tonight, and I was really excited to see that, because yesterday in practice it was kind of tough for him in the physical battles. Kind of tough for the physical battles again today, but like I said, that size will get him to those spots on the ice. It's now on him to build up the strength so that he can really stay in those positions. I really like that. Ethan, ever since Yanni scored, I couldn't stop smiling. That turned into half yelling and laughing like a madman in my room with the tying and winning goals. That was fun for sure. Oh, it's so good. So good. And then Lindsay, death taxes, and Brandon Montour scoring against Montreal. That's right. Obviously, first game against Montreal earlier this season in Montreal, 8-2 victory, I believe it was, for the Seattle Kraken. And this one, Brandon Montour was definitely a part of that with the hat trick. And then here we are, Brandon Montour, 2 goals, 4 points. He must really like playing against the Montreal Canadiens. That is wild. They are definitely his team. And then I'm seeing everybody saying the broadcast called it 4 seconds on Montour's goal. So definitely appreciate seeing that. And then Light also saying the record was 6 seconds tied by Ovechkin, Sundin, and Kempe. Interesting. That's awesome. So whether it's 4 or whether it ends up being 4 or 5 seconds, it will be the fastest overtime goal. Appreciate that, chat. Really appreciate that from everybody who put in the work there on everything. Let's see, Maddie. Habs fans mad because they said Monty was on the other side of the red line before puck drop. Is that a rule? It is a rule. I don't know if that was the case or not. We'd have to go back and see. It's one of those things that, if the ref doesn't see it and doesn't catch it, did it happen? It's one of those kind of calls. So, stuff like that happens. Everybody gets away with it from time to time. Just saying. Tammy, I'd argue Ty's debut is still most epic with the super chat here. That is true. Ty Cartier did have pretty epic debut. You are right about that, coming in Colorado for the playoffs and then doing what he was able to do, right? He scored in that one, I believe. That's a very good point, Tammy. That's a very good point. I guess maybe if we say drafted by the Kraken, we can split the hairs with everything. But appreciate the super chat, and then Light with the super chat. The Light fun fact of the night: Yanni broke the curse. All other drafted Kraken players got their first point via an assist. Shoot the puck. I'm big man. That is what Yanni said yesterday. That is what he did today. And you're correct, Light, that he is the first drafted Kraken player to come in and get their first NHL point off of a goal. And what a goal it was, too, right? Oh, love seeing that. And appreciate the super chats there from both you, Tammy, and Light as well. Really like that. Lindsay, Yanni Newman's success is making it even more clear the future is the young guys. Ship out the expansion draft guys and let the youth take the reins. That is clearly going to be the plan. Again, you don't want to full sail it. You look at teams like Anaheim as an example of that. You know, like I said, there is a method to what they did with the lineup tonight. You need to make sure that there's enough veteran guys around those young players that they can either take the bad matchups or help them out defensively or do whatever, put them in the best position to succeed. So I think that the youth will be coming over the course of the next two seasons for sure. Just because they have so many great prospects that are developing wonderfully. But don't be surprised if it then means certain quirky lineups, kind of like what we saw tonight. So, like I said earlier, somebody has to draw the short straw there. And so we just have to kind of be prepared for that and got to go with the flow when it happens. And hopefully you still get great results like tonight where you get the win and you get your young player on the board. B with the super chat, just got back from the game and wow, crazy win. So cool to experience it. Sorry if this has already been said. Making arguably your best forward right now, your 4C. Weird decision. They're for Shane's employment. We kind of talked about it. I kind of just talked about it there, kind of the reasoning for that. Maddie needs to get his minutes to continue developing, and you want to develop him. Chandler Stevenson needs to be involved to take the bad matchups for somebody, and that means playing a certain level of minutes. And then you don't want to necessarily load up to that third line with two young players. You want to put Yanni Newman in a position to succeed in his first NHL start and have a veteran presence like Jared McCann, who could be a real shutdown defensive center and then really help his wingers go out there and do their work, which is kind of what happened tonight. It just then, it left literally only the fourth line then for Shane down there at the bottom. So again, is it ideal? No, but I can understand that logic. If that is the logic that they went with, I can at least understand it. And I think as long as it is just for like the home stand, I think it's okay. Shane will survive. Lindsay, lost in all the hype, but how about Ellie Golvanen with a career-high 19 goals this season? No doubt soon to be 20. So happy for him. Yeah, I mean, he picks up that goal. How about him taking care of Juraj Slafkovsky in the fight where it wasn't a full-on fight, but in the scuffle that they had where he was apparently – he dominated that scuffle so bad he was the only one to get a roughing penalty because Slav couldn't get any shots in. Tolvanen was just kind of handling it all. I don't think that's why the refs called that whole situation they did. Kind of questionable how the refs kind of called that whole situation, but I do want to give Ellie Tolvanen some credit for that one. This big size mismatch there for Ellie Tolvanen, and yet he handled that thing like a boss. Great play from Ellie Tolvanen in two different ways tonight. Bryce, odd to see McCann back at center. Why not put Shane on that line with Newman? Kind of talked about why I think that was. And like I said, Jared McCann is kind of the perfect guy to have at center because of how defensively minded he can be if you want to have a winger really just focus on offense. So I do understand wanting to pair him with Yanni Newman. I think that's what's kind of going on. Let's see. Edward, looks like the Alaska Airlines mystery destination is Puerto Vallarta, code Sand Shots. Yes, they announced that after a lot of people are already out of the building because that fifth goal was scored so late, but pretty good destination there. I would take a look at that. I'm not going to lie. I'd take a look at that. I think that's pretty good. Jason, did we just call a Coco first goalie goal? I don't know if it'll be the first one, but I'm just saying maybe he can do it. I'm not gonna call him out. Daniel, do they not call interference in the NHL anymore? They do still call interference. This was a game where it felt like the refs kind of wanted to make it one of those ones where they don't call a lot initially, and then the teams kind of force them into having to call more. And then when the refs kind of have to play catch up like that, things get weird. That was kind of my take on this one. And I, there was definitely some things that left us all scratching our heads up on the press bridge. I will say that, and I'll probably leave it at that. But I know where you're coming from. Let's see. Kraken Queen, dare I say we should thank Berkey for drawing the penalty late in the third? I mean, he did draw that penalty. Like, I think that's on the board. And Daniel, I thought Berkey looked good tonight. I thought he did too. Like, I felt like him and McCann, they had like a mission on what they were doing playing with Yanni Newman and kind of what the plan was going to be for them on that line. And I felt like they did a really good job with that. And I think, that's kind of what was going on there. Brooke, not Riker's best game tonight. I hope he starts progressing more next season. I think he will. I think that this is his first full season, right? At the NHL level. Wasn't he only up for like half of last year? Being a young defenseman, it's very hard. The National Hockey League, this is why defensemen take the longest to kind of get there. It's just an extremely difficult thing. There's so many things to focus on. I think there's maybe elements of like a rookie wall, so to speak, our first full season wall. I think there's elements of, who knows this far into a season if guys are dealing with something from an injury perspective, they're banged up a little bit. I would argue everybody's probably banged up, but the extent at which guys are banged up this late to a season can vary. I don't know that that's the case with Riker Evans, but it could explain why his play has fallen off here recently. But I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from. On the first Yuri Slafkovsky goal, he played it poorly. Like, there's kind of no way around it. He's kind of loosely went for the poke check, which is what I think he should have done, was really step up into Slafkovsky, put his body really in the way of Slafkovsky, make Slafkovsky have to go through him, and then really focus on playing the puck with his stick. It looked like he kind of started to initially do that. Maybe he was a little flat-footed when he started off with that push-off, and he wasn't quite able to. And then he tries to, turn around and go with Slafkovsky, but at that point it was too late. He was a step behind, and he wasn't able to do anything. But that goal in particular, I noticed, and I was like, that's a rough one on Riker, and it just kind of felt like he was kind of stuck between two thoughts on how he should play that. And the bottom line is, at the NHL level, you just go with what your instinct tells you first, and you live or die by that. But you have to go with it, because the game is way too fast for you to sit there and try to make a decision on the fly in a spot like that. You have to just go with your initial read and hope it works for the best. And for good players, it usually does. But I did think that was kind of the case there, and I understand where you're coming from, Brooke. I do. I talked about after the Nashville game, maybe sitting him. Obviously, Josh Mahura got sat tonight. Maybe we see something like that. I don't know. With Dan, he loves his CV guys, so I don't know. Let's see. Amanda, this is the second shot-off face-off from him this season, too. That's right. He really, really likes those, doesn't he? Let's see. RJ setting up over there. Or I thought he was. Oh, no, he moved. Okay. I was like, then I saw somebody walking away. I was like, all right. Milo smashes Maddie's record of 7 seconds from that game against the Caps way back when. Yes, back in season 2. Still electric. That's probably the game I wish I was at the most, as far as the games that I had to miss all those years being down south. But yeah, crushes that record. And that was the first thing that we all thought up on the press bridge too, was like, what was the time on Maddie's goal? Like, how much faster was it? It felt faster for sure, but how much faster? It's a fair amount faster there. Fair amount faster then. Montour said the overtime goal was all Chandler. Stevie haters stay mad for Brooke. Yeah, he did say that on the interview down on the bench. They pumped that through the arena, and look, it was great play from Chandler Stevenson. I called it that way when talking about the goal first. It was a beautiful kind of win off the draw, push it forward, and then Montour's able to go and get it, right, RJ?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great set play for overtime for that winner. And it was actually Chandler Stevenson's idea. Brandon Montour and Dan Bilesma said that was kind of a set play. And Chandler Stevenson came up with it, told Montour to line up right there on the draw, kind of going 3 wide. And Montour said to Stevenson, in case the draw goes bad, Stevenson would kind of drop back, Montour would go forward. And that was the set play they came up with. And Dan Bilesma called it brilliant.
Yeah, it was. You certainly can't argue with those results. I know people are waiting to hear about a lot of things that probably were discussed back there. So why don't you give us the full lowdown?
Yeah, so I mean, gosh, where to start with this one? So I'm sure it's been mentioned in chat before, but I figured this out as we were walking down right after getting off the elevator. But that is the fastest overtime goal in NHL history, which that's pretty cool that we all got to see that live.
Yeah.
4 seconds, they adjusted it from 5 seconds down to four. Which means it is the fastest overtime goal in NHL history. It's also tied for the fastest goal from the start of any period in
Yep.
NHL history. So that's really cool. I asked Brandon Montour if he was even aware of that, and he said, well, Stevie said that it might be, given how fast it was, but they had an idea that it could potentially be. And then, yeah, Montour just credited, Stevenson and just how smart of a play it was to kind of set that up and confirmed it was a set play. So there's that. And then, of course, there's Yanni Newman. We got to talk to him after his amazing NHL debut. And, he still doesn't know a ton of English. His English is good, but it's still kind of basic stuff. So, he just had an amazing experience. He felt like, wasn't nervous, but it was just, amazing, great game, big comeback, and you could see really just the joy in his face. Like you couldn't really, I don't know, from the words he said, from the transcript, it doesn't really do it justice. You know what I mean? You got to go watch the video and just see how he's just beaming and so happy that he got to score his first NHL goal in his first NHL game. Said it was amazing that his parents were there. I guess last time they saw him play was in January. But for them to be in the building, it was just really, really special for him. And just to see the joy on his face was amazing.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely fantastic. Did you happen to ask Brandon Montour why he hates the Montreal Canadiens so much, RJ? It's a hat trick that first game back in, what was that, like late October, and then here gets a 4-point night, 2 more goals against him.
Yeah, it wasn't phrased like that, but he was asked about, what is it about Montreal, right? And he said, well, it's mostly just shooting the puck. It's being opportunistic and just taking shots, and they go in for him, it seems like. So I think that's kind of what he chalks it up to, really, is he's just firing away, and it's worked for him.
Yeah. And then was there any discussion with Coach Dan Bylsma about Shane Wright being on the fourth line?
Yes, there was. And so he said it was because with Newman, it was basically sent around with Newman coming in. They wanted to have Jared McCann as a center. They kind of wanted that line there. And then, of course, Shane gets kind of bumped off to a different line. That's what happens. And it was our buddy Darren Brown that asked him the question. And he said to Darren, he said, you're the only one labeling it a fourth line, talking about the line that Shane Wright is on. And I don't know that that's accurate.
Yeah.
I think we probably labeled it that way as well. But he doesn't, Dan doesn't seem too bothered about it.
I was going to say the ice time numbers would also label it a fourth line, as it was.
Yeah, what, 10 minutes or so that he got?
Yeah, he got 10:40. So.
Well, let's hope that's not a long-term thing. I don't think it is. I think they, in Newman's debut, they probably wanted to just set things up a certain way. And how much ice time did Newman get? I didn't check.
Yanni Newman got 13:56. So like in line with, what Shane has been getting for most of the year on that third line and getting a little bit of special teams power play time and stuff. So I don't know. I said it earlier, basically the first half of Dan's response, which great if it had maybe ended just there, which was just that, Maddie's line has to get their minutes. He needs to get those minutes against quality competition to continue his development. Chandler Stevenson needs, and that line needs to take the bad matchups, right? Just like Wenberg did in all those years prior. That's Chandler Stevenson's job. And then, you don't want Yanni Newman out there with another young player. You want a veteran center there for Yanni Newman in his debut. It kind of only leaves the quote unquote, apparently fourth line for Shane Wright there.
Yeah, I think pushing back on the fourth line thing is, not exactly correct. But as Amanda's saying, Dan is so dad-coded with the media, just giving you guys a hard time for fun. I think there is an element of that. He was joking around with Darren a bit too. So that happens. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially after a game like this.
Yeah, especially after a game like this, he was having a good time. He was clearly happy about all of it. We were there. I think it was Curtis that informed him that it was, in fact, an NHL record for the fastest goal. I think the first, 5 or 6 seconds of his answer about that was him just trying to find the words and just kind of stumbling and trying to figure out what to say about that. But you could tell he thought it was pretty cool. And then one more quote from Dan that I want to mention too, because he did talk about Yanni Newman and his NHL debut. And he said that the message to him was to leave no doubt about the type of player you are and what you're good at. And he felt like Yanni really did that tonight.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that. And I would agree that Yanni did that. Like, I mean, we were in here talking, is that like the greatest debut for a Kraken player? We kind of thought about Ty Karche. Tammy in a super chat brought up Ty Karche after we kind of had said yes, which is a good pull. So we amended it to Kraken drafted player.
Yeah. Or best regular season debut.
Yeah, we could go that way as well. I've already answered for my favorite goal, RJ. What was yours?
Oh man. I mean, I've got to like look.
Mine
The
was the
Newman
first
goal is
Monty
so
goal.
okay. Yours was the first Monty goal. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I got to go with the overtime goal. Just the set play off the face off there, and especially given the Kraken's overtime woes at times, going with something a little creative like that. And I like that it was player driven as well, right? It wasn't even something the coaching staff worked on. They saw Montreal kind of lining up the way that they did. Stevenson, said, hey, let's make a little adjustment here. Let's go for that. And it worked out beautifully. And I just love that kind of play where the players are thinking, right? They're cerebral. They're looking at what's around them and they're making smart plays. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Like, I'd love to see it for sure. Lots of people enjoying everything. Oh, Fusion Mix, absolutely insane. I'm so sad I turned off the game right before the comeback started in order to play an old Monster Hunter game. Wow, should have kept the faith. Got to keep the faith, Fusion Mix, when it comes to the Seattle Kraken. Apparently,
this team, they can. I think they can find a way to blow any game, but man, they can come back from anything. They're never, ever, ever out of it.
Yep. Maddie asking, do you think Newman will get 9 games? So the 9-game mark usually for a young player is to avoid anything past that and you lose the entry level slide, they call it, where you can slide the year of the contract later. But that does stop being a possibility once a player hits, it's either a certain age or it's really however many years out from their draft it is. And Yanni Newman is past that point, right, RJ? So the 9 games doesn't matter. This year is coming off of his entry-level contract, regardless of if they give him 10 games or he just played tonight and then goes right back down.
Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't, it's not a factor here for Yanni Newman. So they can play him, as much or as little as they want up here. And as Byron pointing out, yeah, it is age-based. And also, I mean, really the consideration is just how long do you want to keep him away from Coachella Valley? Because we're seeing what he's doing up at this level. You can imagine what he's done in the AHL this year, and the numbers really back that up. I'm sure they miss him right now, too.
Oh, they definitely do. And then Alex was talking about if he plays like this through the homestand, because, you and I have talked about it. We both think he'll be here for these 3 games. If he plays like this through the next 2 games, RJ, do you think there's a chance they just leave him up?
I don't see why not. I mean, certainly if he does exactly this and he's got 3 goals through the 3 games, right, you have to at least play him until he doesn't score. But yeah, I think a lot of this could be performance based. And certainly if he keeps playing this well, how do you not keep him up, right? I mean, to send him down, I just don't like the message that sends. Even if it was all like going to be for 3 games anyway, if he does this, and I think he's fundamentally changed that power play unit. He is making an impact at the NHL level by what he's doing with the man advantage. I think if that continues to be the case, you got to leave him up for as long as it is the case.
Yeah, I think the one thing that, you slowly start to figure out if you make that decision to kind of leave him up for longer is you do have to figure out Shane Wright, and you obviously don't want your hottest player down there on the 4th line forever. I think for a 3-game stint, you can do that, but you can't do that for the rest of the season. But I think that would be like kind of a natural next step, right? Okay, you made it past those 3 games. You've checked all the boxes and more. That's why you're going to hang around. Now let's see how you can build chemistry with maybe somebody like a Shane Wright or moving around in the lineup a little bit there. Maybe you send him all the way up to like Maddie's line or something and then up somebody down with Shane. You could get experimental pretty quick if you're Dan Bilesma there. Once he's kind of locked in for longer. I mean, it did seem like yesterday talking with Dan about Yanni Newman that it was going to be performance-based. Like, he made it clear that he was going to play today, but then didn't make it clear that he was going to keep playing. He said many things in a way that made me really think like it was going to be game by game, performance by performance for Yanni Newman. And then obviously this performance was off the charts. So I got to imagine we see him on Friday there.
For sure. Got to play him on Friday. I will be pretty annoyed if they don't.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Let's see. Yeah, Darren asked Shane about Shane on the fourth line. Dan said you're the only one calling it a fourth line. So Virginia was in here in chat before you were able to join us there. Appreciate that, Virginia. Tammy, the high stick. I feel like the puck hits the stick later than you might think, and it was borderline when the puck actually hit his stick. I don't know, because B saying I don't know what angle the refs are watching, but all the ones I saw were of a high stick. We thought it was a high stick, kind of for sure. I just think the way Slafkovsky has to contort himself kind of means it had to be pretty high.
Yeah, and you look at it where it is relative to his shoulders and his height and everything. I will admit we didn't see an angle that was right at crossbar level that would tell us kind of definitively. I didn't see a definitive angle, but I mean, it's on the first look, it sure looked high. Given where his height is and where his shoulders are, it looked high. And then also, I think the most telling thing was Slav's reaction. I mean, the fact that he didn't really celebrate, he just kind of stood there and was like, like he kind of knew it wasn't going to score, which is rare that you see that for a player. Usually, even if they think it's high, they usually at least kind of pretend that it wasn't and they go celebrate.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then we got, Stevie's a good player, guys, from Steve Brooks. Stevie haters stay mad. Steve, he's just an acquired taste. And Kylie, I'm tired of the Stevie hate. I know most of it's due to his contract, but still, look, Jeremy, Stevie racks up points. When we did our over-unders before the season, I was more bullish on Chandler Stevenson's ability to produce points this season. I did think that he was going to be able to do that. I think he has been able to do that. I will totally agree with you, all of you, on his play in the offensive zone.
Yep. If it's just based on that, yeah.
I've cooled the hate a lot on the defensive zone stuff, but I'm not willing to give you the full 200 feet. That's all.
But also, I mean, I think the number one reason beyond that you were maybe kind of negative on him, and maybe I was too, but is that you look at right now, especially with the way that they're lined up, he's blocking Shane Wright. He's the reason that Shane Wright is playing on the fourth line right now. And so, this is going to be a problem for the next 6 years. Even if Stevenson is good, it still creates that problem.
Yeah, and Berkeley Catton comes in, and then now you have another center in the equation, right? Like that is a big reason why, yes, we were questioning maybe the signing, or at least the term of the signing back when it happened. That is definitely true. Let's see. Fusion Mix Berkey. We're talking about Berkey's contract, everything. We don't need to open up that rabbit hole. I'm with Steve. Felt like tonight was a good Berkey game. But I get your point. I thought it was a good Berkey game. I thought he did a good job of helping put Yanni Newman in spots to succeed at 5-on-5.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you were telling me that before the game, what you were kind of hoping the message to him was just feed the kid. Get the zone entry, feed the kid. And it seemed like he was doing a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. RJ, who got the belt? Yanni? Monty? Chuck's asking.
I don't know. I think they cleared it away before we got there, but they might not have. And I was just too focused on. We went straight into Brandon Montour immediately, and these were important interviews. I wanted to make sure to get right up to everybody. Sorry.
That is good. And then Stratic, Seattle has 10 wins, 6 losses, 1 tie, and a plus 28 goal differential versus Montreal since 1917. Also, what was RJ's favorite goal? RJ, you did answer that with the overtime goal, but that is quite the record against Montreal for Seattle teams. Yep,
good stat. Is that a large enough sample size? By years anyway, probably is.
Yes. Those very rare occasions in which they play each other, if it's based off of years there, for sure. Alex, so Matty is one of the better defensive centers in the league and is in his 4th season. Looking ahead to next season, Matty will have 320 games under his belt. Time for him to be the matchup center. Well, I know Viren earlier in chat was talking about Matty actually has the highest level of competition this year amongst the centers for the Seattle Kraken, which I think he already kind of is. I think that was the step forward for him to take this year. It was to maybe get back on track with offensive production after last year being a down year, but it really was that like kind of, okay, you got the extension. Let's see you really become that top 6 center for us. And you got to go out there and you're going to have to go up against the big boys now.
Yeah, and he's done that, and I think he's thrived. He just needed a little bit of help with some bigger, more physical bodies. And as soon as he's gotten that, he's really unlocked everything he can do.
Yeah, definitely. And being put in positions like he was on the game tying goal, that he's able to collect the tip, right? And what were we watching yesterday with that power play setup with him in the bumper spot? I can't believe it's taken me 50 minutes into the post game to talk about this, but that's where he should be on a power play. Matty Beniers, right? I've already said it. Yanni Newman, best one-timer on this team, hands down. It just is. It's the case. Okay, took me 2 seconds to realize that it's the case. Matty Beniers is the best guy when it comes to tipping pucks, right? For being out there, back to the goalie, facing the point, getting his stick on the puck, and then not only getting his stick on the puck, but deflecting it in a way where it actually then beats a netminder and it goes into the back of the net, right? That is just, Matty Beniers has been the best player at that. I feel like for years now on this squad. Finally, they put him in a position, RJ, where with the man advantage at least, he can do that. And then you go and you see him and he picks up that goal. And it is a power play goal, that game tying goal. Obviously it was kind of a 6-on-4 with the empty net. But that the reason Matty is there is because they finally put him in the bumper.
Exactly. And it's unlocking a lot. And one thing we saw too, they haven't done it in a game yet, but if they ever do decide to kind of feed the bumper as a trigger man, he was just sniping it from that spot. I mean, putting one-timers up high past Joey. I'm excited to see if they ever do move it to him in that situation, but it does feel like the best spot to put him.
This is where, if playing longer term on a power play with Yanni Newman having more NHL game tape, the fact that he has the one-timer that teams have to account for, the fact that he has the slap pass that teams have to account for backdoor to Jordan Eberle on that unit, or at least that's who it was yesterday in practice. He was also the one making all of those passes to set up those Matty one-timers, or at least some of them, it felt like, right? And so if he can kind of be the guy that defenses have to really account for, and then it opens up a little bit more space in the middle for somebody like Matty Beniers to get going, I mean, it's just all the more reason to have Yanni Newman out there on special teams. And then I will also point out, because I'm going to be paying attention to this through the rest of the season, we had that question about the split coaching attention from Bob Woods and Jessica Campbell out there, the two assistant coaches that run the power play. Does one just work with one unit and then the other with the other? Yesterday, Jess was the one working with the unit that had Yanni Newman, Matty Beniers, Brandon Montour, Chandler Stevenson, and Jordan Eberle. And that was the one that got both goals tonight.
Yeah. We saw it all during practice, right? It was kind of split, and that's the way it was split. Don't know if it's been that way all season, for each unit or whatever. We're going to keep an eye on it going forward, but that's certainly the way it was yesterday.
Yes, definitely. Kendall, I know a lot of people are calling for Dan to be gone after the season. If they keep playing like this, do we think they give him another season? I know if GM Ron Francis goes, it'll be different. The young guys do so well with him. It very much feels like majority of the time when I see people call for Dan to go, it's either directly related to Shane Wright's ice time, which I think would be a silly reason to fire a coach, or it's related to the overall kind of team effort, which those questions existed under a previous coach. So again, at some point, maybe fingers there needs to go more towards the player group. But I do think that Dan has proven to work really well with young players. It's evident by all of the young guys that have come up from Coachella Valley, whether they were drafted or undrafted, guys like Ty Cartier, right? They've all looked really, really solid. They've all been able to come in and really hit the ground running once their NHL journeys have officially gotten underway after they've had some experience with Dan.
Right, and I think also you look at the systems, the X's and O's, and Dylan, you've gone over this point a bunch during the season, right? The way that they've tried to play, what they've tried to run systems-wise, the big problem is they have not had the players and the personnel that are capable of running it to a high level. And I don't think that's on Dan. That's on, the group of players or the guy who assembled the group of players. And so I think, if Francis goes, then normally a new GM gets to hire his own coaching staff. That's just how it works. But I think if Francis stays, Bilesma stays for sure, and he should.
Yeah, definitely. But I agree with you, Kendall. He does such great work with the young players, and we'll see as more and more guys come up from Coachella Valley, just because they're used to running the system that Dan ran. And obviously Coach Laxdal down there now running the same system that the Kraken are running up here. They made a big point of emphasis of that during training camp and everything, that they would be running a similar system to the NHL, so that as players come up, like a Yanni Newman right now, he knows where to be, what his job is out there at 5-on-5. He knows what to do on the power play. That's just so beneficial to put these guys in a position to succeed and come out here and do things like score in their first ever NHL game.
Exactly. And just Newman, watching him, going back and thinking about the shifts, he just looks so comfortable in a way that you don't usually see guys in that situation look. And I think it's because of, like you said, the similarity in the way that Laxdal and Biles, run the systems, operate the team. And I know that's one of the things you loved about the Pittsburgh Penguins when they were really in their heyday, that you always talked about when they were winning cups 2016, 2017, right? How it just, whenever anybody came up, it was just they're interchangeable and next cog in the machine, right? Because they all knew organizationally how everybody was playing.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. If you're going to really transition from your farm system just being purely developmental, and I mean, this is still also developmental. You can get them to play the way that they're going to then succeed at the NHL level. But as you start working it so that it is more of a feeder system to the NHL rather than kind of what it was the last couple of years, which was more of a standalone team of AHL veterans, and we're establishing the brand in Coachella, and we're waiting for a lot of our drafted prospects to be able to be eligible to play for the Firebirds. Now that we're seeing those prospects come in and the team is transitioning more into a feeder team, I think this is the best way to handle that, and it's certainly what they've been doing. So really excited about that. We'll do a quick last call here, but looking ahead to Friday, RJ, against Utah, I mean, do you think that we see anything different about the lines? I kind of feel like based on the performances of everybody tonight, we probably see the same thing.
I would think so too. And usually after a big win, they've kept the lines together unless an injury or something, makes a change there. Nobody asked, I don't know, they would have gotten a solid answer, but nobody asked either about the D change, if, Mahura is okay or what the deal is with that. That might be one change I'd anticipate. But as far as the forward lines, I don't think they'll mess with them after a game like this.
I was just going to say the one change that I could see, and we talked about this a little bit before you joined us, RJ, was, Riker Evans still didn't look great. And in this one, I mean, that Slavkovsky goal, the first one, not the controversial high stick one, but the other one, I mean, Riker gets walked there. I do wonder, do you think that there would be a chance that they would maybe slide in Mahura for Riker?
If he's healthy, possibly, but I don't know. We still don't know why he missed this game. So,
yeah, no, that is fair. Otherwise, it's Utah, RJ. We know how Utah wants to play. It should be another kind of back and forth.
I think it'll feel like this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's going to be wide open, lots of space. I mean, that's kind of how it was last time they played. Huge defensive gaps. I think Utah still has a lot to learn defensively, but man, they've got some guys who can shoot the puck and finish.
Definitely. No, Kraken are going to need to be aware and handle things defensively, but offensively, I mean, what a perfect kind of homestand to actually call up somebody like Yanni Newman, right? Go up against the Montreal Canadiens defense, which is not good, and then go up against that Utah Hockey Club defense. I'll just call them Houston there. Jumping the gun, give it another couple of years. They'll be a team in Houston in a couple of years. But yeah, they leave something to be desired defensively, we'll say.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I just, Alex, on your comment, I don't know, I always thought Buzz Flibbit did better, but Mark Donk did pretty well.
He did. The list is endless. I could be here all night naming these guys, just naming guys like sports fans do. Actually, if you want me to do that, there's a perfect time to ask me, RJ, and that would, of course, be at our watch party 1 week from today at Queen Anne Beer Hall, when we can all gather there in person and watch the Kraken take on the Minnesota Wild. You could win Kraken tickets to an upcoming home game. Do you remember offhand, RJ, which home game?
Yeah, it's the game against Dallas on the 31st.
Yes. We do get back-to-back games against Dallas, which is at home, which is going to be fun.
That's why I mentioned the date.
Yes, that's why the date is important there. But yeah, really looking forward to being able to get that watch party, and we're only a week away.
I know. I cannot wait. I mean, it's been too long with all the complications, with your back and other issues, my wedding, my honeymoon. It's been too long into the season, but cannot wait to hang out with everybody for that one. And then, of course, another one in early April at Moss Bay Hall. It's going to be great. Just finished talking with the Beer Hall guys the other day, and they're super pumped about it. They donated the tickets to give away, and we got some other cool prizes as well for the raffle. But most exciting part is just seeing all of you there and getting to put some faces to names, get to hang out with you, having a live chat, but it's live in person with real people. It's the best.
Yes, and unlike last year's watch parties, we actually get to be there together, which is also
I know,
going
yeah,
to be
both of
fun.
us get to be there.
Yes. What a wild concept for an ECH watch party. Love that. And Chuck asking, does the beer hall have a parking lot? It's like a very small parking lot there at the beer hall, and then there's lots of street parking around. So you might have to walk a block or two, but you can generally find something.
Yeah, there's street parking around is usually kind of the way to go. I know there's sometimes some like down the street and to the right a little bit. There's some like free parking as well, but that can be iffy depending on the time. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Want to thank you all so much for joining us. Want to thank everybody who gave super chats. Really appreciate it. And we will see you all next time.